How's everybody doing today? My name is Patrick Doyle. I'm a family addiction coach, and I'm very excited to be joined by my friend Cathy Taughinbaugh. For more than 10 years as a certified peer parent addiction coach, Cathy has helped many parents of children with addiction gain recovery. As a result of her journey with her own child's drug use, Cathy, a former educator, became a certified parent coach to help other parents struggling because of their child's substance use. Cathy has level 1 certification in the Invitation to Change approach, which is really cool. It's a really cool program, Invitation to Change. It's put up by the Center for Motivation and Change. It's awesome. And Cathy also hosts Invitation to Change support groups. She's the author of The Compassion Antidote, A Path to Change for You and Your Child Struggling with Substance Use, and is the creator of the video course, Regain Your Hope. You can learn more about her Regain Your Hope course, plus many blogs and videos at her website, cathytaughinbaugh.com. And Cathy, I want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience. So Cathy will be with us momentarily, I have no doubt. Okay, so tonight's discussion is going to be about codependency. Codependency, anybody who's been around the addiction treatment, addiction recovery space has probably heard a lot about codependency, generally not in a positive frame, and can have a profound impact on families with addiction and also persons with addiction as well. It affects them very strongly. What I will say is that for a concept that has had such a powerful influence, it was not easy for me to find a clear definition of codependency, and that's one of the problems with this. It all goes back to the 12 steps, Alcoholics Anonymous. They were developed in 1935 or so, and Alcoholics Anonymous has been a very effective, very successful program in terms of helping people get into recovery from alcohol and substance use disorder in general. So it's been fabulously successful for many years now. And the program was started by a couple of gentlemen who were of a Protestant Christian faith, who were affluent, highly educated, and also had great difficulty stopping alcohol use. And the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, to a great degree, reflect their cultural values that they come from. And there's a lot of what I would call Puritanism, the Puritans and the Pilgrims coming over to this country at some point, and a lot of that influence in the 12 steps. So after a couple of decades, I think it was 1951, the wife of Bill Smith, Lois Smith, she started this side program called Al-Anon Family Groups. And that was intended to be for families of people with an addiction to help them get into their own type of recovery. And it's largely in the Al-Anon family groups based on the 12 steps of AA that the concept of codependency started. And basically what was believed to be true is that when someone grows up in a family and later on develops an addiction, that the family must have contributed to it. The family must have caused it, if you will. The family has become enmeshed. And by enmeshed, what they mean is over-involved in each other's business. Especially parents. If they raise a child who develops addiction, the parents develop this codependency, that they become addicted on their child who has developed the addiction, as reflected by the great lengths that parents will go oftentimes to try to protect that child when they're in active use of substances. And we do see this, that sometimes parents have difficulties saying no. They have difficulties perhaps making decisions about how much should they financially support a loved one who is not financially independent, maybe not working a job. Even to whether to allow them to stay in their home with them or not, can be very challenging. So what had developed, starting in AA and then Al-Anon family groups, is this concept that somehow families were to blame for children who grew up with addiction. They must have done something wrong. if the families don't change their ways, if they don't develop solid boundaries and turn their back on the person with the addiction, that the person that they are going to be enabling the person with the addiction to continue to use drugs, and that they're going to be harming them. So this movement keeps gaining, and it really became hugely popular in the 1980s. And there was books written like Codependent No More, and various speakers made circuits around the country talking about codependency and trying to cure people, help people get into what they say is a recovery. What I will say is that in doing research especially for tonight's presentation, trying to get a singly accepted definition of what codependency really is almost impossible to do. And if you look at some of the characteristics that people who believe in codependency put forward as evidence of it and as symptoms of it, that list would go something like this. And these families are enmeshed. Enmeshed, basically, they're too much into each other's business. They're eavesdropping, they are trying to get in control, they're not letting their child grow up and to be an independent individual and learn from mistakes. So enmeshed, the idea of having no boundaries, that the family is externally focused, that they base their happiness on how that person with the addiction is faring. Are they using substances? Are they not? Are they doing well in life? Are they doing poorly? And the thinking is that the family can only be as good or be as well as that person with the addiction is. This whole concept of enabling gets brought into it as well. Enabling, as if that's a bad thing. So this idea of enabling, that parents, if you financially support your child, if you let your child come and live with you, say you've got a son 25, 30 years old who is not able to hold down a job because of their substance use, they're really having problems with that. If you let them stay in your house, the rationale is that you are enabling their use, because the thinking is that they have no reason to stop using substances. So giving them a roof over their heads, protecting them from the elements, protecting them from COVID during this pandemic, that is thought to be negative and harmful to that person with the addiction. Codependency involves families being fearful, being overly fearful, too afraid to take a risk, I suppose, that they lack healthy boundaries. They have a hard time saying no, or maybe they can't say no. They may be taken advantage of by the person with the addiction, but they continue to allow it to happen. They become obsessed with the addiction. Now, this is what the thinking goes of people who believe in this, that they become obsessed with the addiction, how the person with the addiction is faring, doing well and doing not so well, becomes their only focus. That they're living in denial, that they don't understand or grasp what their behavior is doing to the person with the addiction. That they are sometimes angry, that they are sometimes controlling, and that they are sometimes hypervigilant, that they are putting an unnecessary amount of protective factors over the person with the addiction. And so basically infantilizing, treating them like a child, like someone who won't be able to be independent. So that's a wide range of qualities and traits. Now, there are different ways to look at this concept of codependency. In my experience, and I'm a family addiction coach, I work with a lot of families, I work with friends and loved ones of people with addiction. So I go beyond working with parents. I can work with adult children of people who have a substance use disorder, employers of people with a use disorder, friends, partners of people, spouses of people with a use disorder. But the people who reach out to me, they're always very positive, very healthy, very caring. They're beautiful people, and I love them. I love working with them. I love working with people with addiction, and I love working with their families as well, because I see these qualities that they have had to pull out and they have had to go with in order to survive, because they won't quit. They won't give up on their loved one. They don't give up on themselves either in terms of finding hope, health, and recovery as time goes by. So there are other ways to look at these traits of such families. You could say that they were deeply involved, that they have a high level of concern about others, that they are very supportive, that they are eager to care for a loved one. Now, this is a different way of looking at it, yet it's very similar. It depends on how you look at the scenario, about the situation, about the dynamics. And it's similar to that idea. Are you going to look at a glass as half full or half empty? Neither side is necessarily wrong, but how we look at life and how we look at things like the glass being half full versus half empty will affect our attitude, our approach, and also what we put our energies to doing. These families choose to say yes. They don't have to say yes. And if they choose to help someone, then they're doing it out of love. And a lot of times they're keeping them from serious harms. They are unwilling to give up. The families I work with, they never quit. I never quit in working with either the families or the person with the addiction. If somebody wants to quit, I'm not the coach for you. If somebody is unwilling to quit, I could be the coach for you, because that's how I look at it. And the families who are not interested in quitting, they still want to help, but they want to do something in an effective way. We tend to get along very well. And I've seen amazing recovery in the families that I've been coaching, the families I've been working with. Now, you could also think of families as fearful of further loss. Sometimes you come across families that have not one loss to addiction, but sometimes two or even more losses to addiction. So human nature, just think of what kind of impact that is going to have on the family. So is the family going to turn their back if another member of that family develops addiction or depression or anxiety or a mental health issue? I don't think so. And it makes sense. They also are really good at anticipating problems, which could also be called harm reduction, that they can anticipate the kind of difficulties that their loved one is going to have if they kick them out of the house, and they know what will happen. So they anticipate problems. Basically, they really believe that their loved one can recover. They believe in them tremendously. They want to maintain a loving relationship. They don't want to turn their back. They don't want to stop any kind of support. They don't want to stop loving them. How would you stop loving a person, a child, a family member? I mean, how would you stop loving them because they have an illness? If someone had cancer and maybe was tired of going along with the cancer treatments, would you turn your back on them? Would you not try to be there for them, to support them, and to be with them for as long as they're around? Of course you would. So why should it be any different with addiction, with substance use? That's how we can differentiate between, do we look at something as being codependency, something unhealthy, or do we look at it as an asset and something to build on and something to fine-tune that will perhaps be a little more effective for the family's quality of life, but also for the person with the addiction's quality of life? Now, one question for Cathy is about her having seen this notion of codependency harming family members and also people with addiction. Heck to the yes, I've seen that a lot. I once had the honor of working with a family. I worked with a mother who had a daughter who was in her mid-teens when the daughter developed addiction. Every year or two, the mother would reach out to me. She knew that I specialized in mental health and addiction. She would ask for assistance, ask for help to get her daughter a quality treatment. And of course, every time she reached out, I would always help her. I also noticed that after I had helped her and she had found a program for her daughter, and I would try to do follow-up to see how things were going, she would not respond. She would not respond for a year or maybe even 2 years. And that's fine. I understand that people have busy lives. So at any rate, it was a 5-7 year period, I believe, that the teenage daughter went through really hard challenges with addiction. Fast forward, she eventually found recovery, and she's doing really well now. I had the opportunity to meet up with the mother several years later and several years into the recovery, and only then did I hear from the mom. The reason why she could not return my phone calls, let me know how things were going, was because she felt so ashamed. She felt so alone. And that just struck me. I thought that if she was able to reach out during a difficult time, then maybe she would keep reaching out and such. But what I heard later on was that she got so much criticism from most everybody The one person that she could talk to without feeling judged was her sister. And apparently she and her sister would talk on a daily basis. They'd have a lot of tears together because it was grim for several years. But everyone else in her life was giving her criticism, blaming her for the addiction, and judging what she was doing, telling her that she was doing it wrong. It's unbelievable. So that was just such a powerful story, and it just like broke my heart to hear that. But that's what families go through. And with all the stigma and shame that goes along with addiction, a lot of them find it really hard to reach out and ask for help and to talk about what's going on. And it's a hard thing to go through alone, I can guarantee you of that. I have a son who's in his mid-30s who's still struggling with severe level of alcohol use disorder. I go through it myself. And it's hard to talk about, it's hard to get support about, it's hard not to feel guilty, it's hard not to second guess myself. But I won't give up on my son. I never will. And I love him dearly, he means the world to me. I help him any way that I can. Okay, let's see. I see Cathy is writing in. I want to let her in, but I don't know how to. Maybe you can write, chat, text some thoughts that you have, and I'll try to say them. Codependency, Cathy says, codependency can cause pain and confusion for families. Absolutely. Thank you, Cathy. Cathy, keep it coming. Keep it coming. Let's see. Because of this idea of codependency, parents are oftentimes described, they're being labeled sick because they refuse to leave their kids homeless or to have them arrested, even though we know that both situations can worsen addiction. When someone is ill with any other disorder, relatives are not shamed for rearranging their lives to help. When it comes to addiction, parents are told that their loving kindness is pathological because they somehow benefit psychologically from keeping their children addicted. That's what they're really told, that they are benefiting psychologically by keeping their children down and at risk of injury and death. And that only by letting them hit rock bottom will allow recovery, so the thinking goes. But research, we've done a lot of research over the past few decades, and we also have a lot more options. Basically, you cannot reward your child's addictive behavior, but that you have to punish it. And researchers have long found that punishment-based strategies to treat addiction, they tend to be less effective than reward-based strategies for lasting behavioral change. Studies have shown that highly confrontational therapeutic approaches are rarely effective in the long term. Okay, Cathy has offered a great idea that in terms of supporting families, we often start out bringing in the denial. We are in denial about what's going on with our children, with our families, and it can take a while to have an understanding, to learn about different ways, different approaches of how one can help their struggling child. So there's this denial that goes along. The denial is self-protective, because to think of having a child with addiction is scary as hell, and it can be overwhelming. And we have to function. We have to get up and go to work. We have to function to survive. We have to take care of people. We have to take care of ourselves. It takes a long time to learn how to change. Oh, I think I see Cathy. Okay, I'm going to add Cathy. There you are. Oh, God bless you.
I know.
Am I happy to see your face?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm here. I guess I need to go down a little bit more, don't you? Better. Yeah.
That's better. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
No, you're doing great. You don't need me. You're doing great.
Number one, thank you. Number two, I do need you. and it's great to see you.
Thank you. It's great to see you too.
I gave an introduction to our audience about you. Oh, one thing I didn't, just to let people know, and this is a good opportunity for us to recap what we've been talking about codependency and such. And in terms of Cathy's background, Cathy's website is awesome. It's got really valuable, helpful, useful material on it. She has put out a book called The Compassion Antidote, A Path to Change for You and Your Child Struggling with Substance Use, which is a great book. It's available in paperback. I've read it. I learned a lot from it.
I learned a lot from it, and I'm the kind of person who sometimes kind of thinks they know it all already. So when I can learn something valuable from a book, that's really impressive to me. But it's seriously a good book. She also has a online course called Regain Your Hope. Now, both of those, and plus a lot of other materials like podcasts and blogs, those can be found at her website, CathyTaughinbaugh.com. And I'm going to spell that for you. CathyTaughinbaugh.com. Did I get it right, Cathy?
Yes, you did. Good job. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. I've been practicing.
Oh, good.
So let's see. Let me see. So I did the intro. I talked about codependent traits, and then the flip side of codependent traits, how there's this concept called prodependency that I learned about with my research that basically shows families and parents as being super caring and super supportive, super loving, and not wanting to give up on their child. And
right.
if there was any other kind of medical illness that a child had, parents would not give up on that child if they had cancer or diabetes or anything like that. So why should it be any different for addiction if we truly believe that addiction is a medical illness? Would you care to comment on that, Cathy?
No, I agree. I mean, I think we treat it so differently, and I think it's the history of how addiction was kind of moved out of the medical community. You know, at the beginning, the history of it was it's a separate issue that maybe the medical community didn't want to deal with. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I think it's, you know, we've had so many losses, and it's shown that when you turn your back on your kids or any loved one, that there's much greater chance they're going to have a, you know, a very poor outcome. They might do worse. They might have a super negative incident that happens to them, whatever. But I think the more we can stay close, and there are things we can do. And I think the key too is parents feel so much better. I mean, parents are in very big turmoil that I talk to that are being told, detach from your child, don't talk to them, you know, shut the door on them or whatever. And it just causes more stress. So there's no reason absolutely why you cannot stay connected to your child. You can certainly set boundaries if you need to or whatever, but you can meet them if they're not living at home, you can, you know, stay connected, meet them for coffee, meet them for lunch. And then looking for those little things that they're doing well, which I think is one of the things I know I never really thought about when, you know, you're so overwhelmed with this substance use that's going on. You don't think about, okay, they are doing a few things well. What are those? And let me, you know, acknowledge those things and that kind of thing. So definitely there's some tools. And I think parents have a huge sigh of relief when they realize they don't have to turn their backs on these children that they love so much.
Right. And I found myself struggling with that as well. And you did too.
Yeah, I did too.
Because the risks and the behaviors that go along with addiction can be so dangerous, and so a lot of bad things can happen. So the idea of telling somebody, hey, you're doing really good by you know, getting out of bed today, and by being willing to help with, you know, chores around the house, thanks, I really appreciate that. It for some reason we tend to doubt ourselves, and we think, you know, well, why am I saying that? Is my child going to think that I think the substance use is okay? We tend to have this black and white thinking, don't you think? That
absolutely,
yeah. I mean, if they do everything right and everything great, and they graduate from university and they're Rhodes Scholars, and they do this, they do that, then we can give them some praise. But it's like anything less than that, it's like, come on, you got to do better. You know?
No, I agree. And when I heard about, you know, this approach, I mean, it makes so much sense, because when you think about any kind of change you're trying to make, if you're not being encouraged, you lose your motivation. If everyone's always, you know, if all you're getting is negativity from people around you and put downs or whatever, or you find, you know, people are just nagging you about the problem, that kind of thing, you're not motivated to change no matter what it is. So it truly makes sense that for substance use, it's, you know, the kids have a lot of fear, or, you know, any loved one, they have a lot of fear. It's very scary to try to change. They need to, there's a little bit of back and forth, and I know that's frustrating for children or for parents, but we need to have some patience and just work with them. And for me, and I know for you too, you see the turnaround, having that relationship that's stronger is the first key. And it makes sense that if you have a strong relationship, your child's going to listen to you more. They're going to take in what you say. And the other piece I like about it too is then you're not the problem. I think when we get into the really coming down negatively on our children, then it becomes, that mom and dad are the problem. And I come from a parent point of view, but I know it can be any loved one. But then, that loved one or the parent is the problem. So I think these strategies are super helpful. And I've seen many parents really feel strongly about that, their children are turning around, and everyone just feels so much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that as well. Let's see. What now, given the negative interpretations of codependency and all of the blame and shaming that goes on to families with addiction, what would you say, how would you advise your parents, your families on how to cope with that, how to keep it in perspective, how to keep it from changing their minds as from what they know is the right thing to do? How can they learn to do that? How would you advise them?
Right. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think so many parents, I remind parents often that to use their instincts, to educate themselves as much as possible, but to also remember that they know their children better than anybody, and that to use their instincts and to really think about what's going to be best for that situation, what's the best, reaction or the, approach that they want to take. Also, some parents, or family members, you hear these messages from other people, other family members, other friends, you should do this, you should, you're an enabler, you're a codependent, or even from their spouse and all of that. And I think it's just, you have to kind of prepare yourself and be confident that you are on a better path of really learning with some strategies to help your child, and to maybe have, a response or two ready to go, that thank you for the help, but I've chosen to approach the problem this way, or I found some strategies that are helping me, and that kind of thing. So, you just kind of prepare a little bit ahead of time for it. But I think the more people see and family members see that this is an approach that psychologists have suggested, I mean, they're the ones doing the research on it, it's less of a problem when they hear you should be doing this other way, because they really have confidence that they've, learned the information, they've read some books, followed some advice from psychologists or other people who are really trained and know what they're talking about. So I think it helps, you feel better about, I'm doing this because, I've educated myself on this approach, and I feel confident that it's going to, help our family. We know there's no guarantees, but we're going to feel better, and it's going to help our family, and the chances are better that our kids are going to change. So. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's a great point, Cathy. People are going to be barraged with different opinions, and everybody else is going to think that they know the answer for them.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how that comes about, but it just, like with addiction, people come out of the woodwork to tell people, families, parents, what they're doing wrong, and they'll find it, whatever it is, and they'll say you're doing wrong. So as a parent, it's hard to have confidence when we're getting so many differing opinions. We can also get some pretty off-base opinions from so-called experts, treatment providers. And I've been in that experience myself. One time I brought my son to an expert alcohol clinician. And at that point, my son maybe he was a young adult, maybe he was 17 years old. And so I found the best expert in the area that I could for my son to start meeting with. So I was really happy about that. And then I remember saying to that clinician, I'd really love to get some feedback from you as to what you would advise me to do to support my son in his efforts to stay safe and either control his drinking or stop it. And I'll never forget it. The provider said, I don't do that. You're on your own, and I am totally devoted to your son, and it's against the law with HIPAA that I cannot give you any information about your son. Your son has to feel comfortable that I am just working with him. So I'm sorry, but I don't do that. and he turned and he walked away. And I just remember feeling devastated that, and I'm a professional, I work in the field, I know it's a crock of crap for him to say that.
Right.
But and I was surprised because I've always believed in families. I've always believed that for most patients, families are healthy and are positive influences, and the patients do better if the families are involved in treatment. So I've always known that. So here to have this professional expert that I brought my son to say that, I mean, I was devastated, but I was also furious because I knew it wasn't true. I didn't want to interfere with their therapeutic relationship. And anybody who listens to my son years and years later, interviewed with me in episode 19 of the podcast series, he tells everybody that he's very open with me and that he wants to be open with me and that I'm not intrusive and I'm not asking personal questions. And I always ask my son, what can I do to help? I'm never telling him what he has to do. So, to be hit like that, and I hear it still to this day from parents all the time. Residential programs, they don't like to give information out. They don't like to involve the family. And we know that involving families, healthy families who are going to be supportive, does improve treatment outcomes.
No, I totally agree. And also I wanted to say, if anyone has not listened to your podcast with your son, it was so great. I just stumbled on it and it was like, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. But I agree with you. I do feel, I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and you would think that things would have changed by now in the treatment centers. And that to me is a big question mark. Why have they not changed? I have heard some counselors say, and there are family programs, and I think I have to say there are some programs or treatment centers that do have family programs. But I have heard counselors say, they know how to help people in recovery or try to help people that are struggling with drugs or alcohol, but they don't know how to help the family. So I think it's up to these treatment centers to train counselors and to really bring people in who can work with families, because I agree, everyone needs to be involved. It's not just the problem with the child or the loved one. The whole family needs to be involved. Everyone needs to do their part. Everyone needs to do their work. How can they support this person in the best way possible and help themselves, because it's painful for everybody. So that is very unfortunate that our treatment centers have not moved forward in this way, in a more stronger way, of really reaching out to families and helping them. I agree with you. It's frustrating. And I was told sort of the same thing. And, I don't remember, when I went through it, I was told to just go to a support group. That was pretty much all I was ever told to do. And one counselor told me, well, if your daughter does relapse, she's not to come home. And if she knocks on the door, you shut the door in her face and all, I was like, whoa. So, and you just feel like, and then this is what I think the stress comes for parents, because they're like, I don't want to do this. This doesn't feel right for me, but yet this is what I'm being told. So and if, it just adds to the stress for the parents. I really feel like it does when those kind of messages are given.
And I mean, I don't know what the statistics are, but we've both met and talked to a lot of parents who have had losses. And after they've had a loss, it's like, it's just so devastating, especially because oftentimes you hear they got really bad advice. And I can't help but have a sense that this possibly could have had a different outcome if they got better advice, if they were more involved in the treatment and were more given skills and given education so that they could truly be helpful in a way that families can be. And it's not enmeshment. It's not codependency. It's just being loving, and it's having a supportive environment that gives a person with addiction the best opportunity to gain health and recovery.
No, I agree. And they're hurt, our people that are struggling with addiction have deep issues, and what they don't need is to be turned away. They need people to be close to them and to try to work with them as much as they can. So I totally agree with you. It's so interesting that it just so much of our treatment goes against proven methods. It's like, what's wrong with this picture? So I don't know what the answer. I wish there's a lot of people hopefully that can figure this out, but I think part of the problem is that we're we've separated addiction, treatment centers from mainstream. And even though there are doctors on there, and I'm sure they're trying to, bring in some evidence-based information, but it's challenging, continues to be quite a challenge with all of this, for sure. So
Yeah, I mean, things have changed. You do see some treatment programs that are now open to the idea of using medications, which 10 years ago they would not have done. And I'm talking not only, there are 3 FDA-approved medications for alcohol use disorder. Even prescribing those medications, most treatment programs don't believe in that still. Some are more open to that. But then also medications for co-occurring disorders like anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. Oftentimes those illnesses need medication as well to give the person a fighting chance.
Right.
I
agree. And it, and I've heard, people say, and it's just criminal to send these young people out into the world with nothing, and then they relapse, and then they're blamed, when really it's the program. And yes, they have to do their part, of course. People have to make the effort, absolutely. But at the same time, we need to provide services that are really going to make a difference, and that have been shown through research that can be effective. So
yeah, I don't know why this anecdote or situation comes to mind, but I've been thinking about it recently. I do work with people with addiction on occasion, although my focus is families. There was one person with a cannabis use disorder, 30 years old or so, nice guy, and he was very successful in life, but the cannabis was seen as a problem by his spouse, and she wanted me to work with him, so I was working with him, supporting him in a coaching style to help motivate him. And the first 5 sessions, he would tell me that he was drug-free and that his approach was working and things were going okay. And he would talk about stresses and all that kind of thing. And every time I heard him say that, of course, I have no way of knowing whether he's drug-free or not, but I always believe people, even if I have no reason to believe them. Just the fact that they're talking to me and they're asking for help, I think that's enough reason to believe someone. So so I would say, good for you. That's great. You must feel good. You're reaching your goal, kind of thing. And so I give him a lot of praise for that. So then session 6, he comes in. He starts off the session. This was so cool. He says, I got a confession to make. I haven't stopped using at all. Those other 5 sessions I came and I talked to you on the phone, and I was lying to you. And I feel really badly about that. So he's feeling devastated, but he feels so bad. I said, congratulations. I said, that's the best news I've gotten all day. He goes, what? He's all confused. I said, because for 5 sessions, you weren't able to be honest and open and genuine. Then you came in the 6th session, you were able to do that. That is huge growth, and that's recovery. It doesn't matter whether you're using or not, and I mean that to some degree. But the main point is that that's recovery when you can tell the truth, because then you can deal with it and other people can help you. And he said, wow, I never thought of that. I just thought that you were going to like fire me, or you're going to get all pissed off and tell my wife and all of this. I said, no, I don't do that. That doesn't work. That doesn't help. Why would I do that? So he says, wow, I feel really good. I said, good, you deserve to, because this is recovery. And so good for you. And it just stuck with me. And I mean, if no other reason for believing people when they talk to you, it's that's what we see happen.
Right. And it's always, it's baby steps, right? I mean, it's just baby steps forward. And I'm the same way. I've worked with one family that I had a young man in recovery, which was so wonderful. I worked with him almost a year, and he was already in recovery, but it was really great for me to watch the process and his ups and downs. I mean, he never relapsed. I don't think he ever did relapse, but he had some definite ups and downs, and so I thought that was really helpful. But I'm the same way. I mainly work with the family members, the parents. But and I think that's for what parents too. I think for all of us who are in this, it does get frustrating because it's not on our timetable. We want it to move faster, of course. But that's a perfect example of, that person had a breakthrough with you on that 6th session. So, and they were able to be honest with themselves, and then where do they build from there? So that was good.
Yeah. And he did build on that. I saw that as a turning point. It was a turning point. He was, and then we would have some couple sessions where he would be talking to his wife and he'd be telling her the truth, and his wife would get very upset. And I understood why the wife was getting very upset, because it was he was different when he was under the influence. He wasn't, he was detached. He was in la la land. He wasn't available to her emotionally. So I understand why the wife was upset, and yet it helped them to have a neutral third party in these discussions. And I also encouraged her to get formal support and treatment for herself, because that she could see both sides of it as well. She could see, yeah, I think it's great that my husband is telling the truth, but I'm devastated that he won't stop using cannabis, kind of thing. So it's tough, but there is help out there. And I want to circle back and bring people back to your, I highly recommend Cathy's book, The Compassion Antidote, A Path to Change for You and Your Child Struggling with Substance Use. You can get that on your website. You can get it on Amazon.com, right?
Yes, yes. And pretty much anywhere. I mean, I don't even have all the places listed. Thank you, Patrick. That's really nice. But pretty much anywhere books are sold, you can find it on all. It's kind of the indie places. So no, thank you. I appreciate that. And it was
and also the Regain Your Hope course. And I was able to go online, and I started taking Cathy's course, Regain Your Hope. And what I love about it, and it's very much based on community reinforcement and family training, also known as CRAFT, a psychological method with a 70% success rate by working with a family of bringing a loved one, welcoming a loved one into treatment, or reducing their use or even stopping their use, and helping the family improve their quality of life. And what I love about CRAFT, what I love about Regain Your Hope, Cathy's course, is that it teaches people skills, that it's not just ideas or concepts that we throw at people and say, good luck with this, but it's a real deep drilling down, and people learn through repetition, through practice, and through gaining understanding. And Cathy's got so many exercises with that course that it's really going to be helpful for people and help them to feel confident with their approach, confident with how they approach their loved one. And when people feel confident, it makes all the difference in a difficult interaction. And when people with addiction feel loved, they're capable of accomplishing great things.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. And we meet monthly. And then I also am, the other thing that we're bringing in is that invitation change support group. So those run every 13 weeks. So that's another thing that, you can go, I have a group, but there's other people that have groups too. So those are another option.
So that's a 13-week.
There's 4 things.
That the ITC, invitation to change, that's a 13-week process.
That's 13 to 15 week. I mean, it depends on, yes. So that's another option too. But yes, thank you. No, I'm happy to do that. And it's been, I like to interact with the parents. So we do meet once a month and try to, interact. It was fun today because we had it was mainly Canadians. So that was nice for them because they could interact with each other and compare treatment plans. Yeah, they were excited. Oh, we're all Canadians. So, which doesn't happen very often, but it was,
That's funny. Good day, eh?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah,
I love Canadians. They're such kind people.
They are. They're really sweet.
Yeah, I love Canadians. So people can take this course. It's an online course.
Yeah, you can take it and you just watch when you're available. I tried to keep the video short, and it's one of those ones. I did a survey with my list a few years back, and they said, why don't you do something where people can just go online? Because, I think the big challenge, and you may find this too, maybe not so much with individual coaching, but if you're doing groups, of trying to find that time when it's gonna, everyone can meet. It's East Coast, West Coast. We've got people in Europe, we've got Australians, Hawaii, people from Hawaii. So I mean, this is just another option that if you can't, or maybe some people don't like it. Sometimes people just like to do it on their own. So, but with the course, there is opportunities to meet in a group too. So it's the information, and then there's other things going on there as well. So yeah, thanks for mentioning it. So I've met some amazing women and people through this program, which I'm sure you have too. I mean, there's so many amazing families going through this. So good thing, I think it's good to know you're not alone with this, and there's lots of other families struggling as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. Using the CRAFT approach, you see families improving their quality of life in just a few sessions.
Absolutely.
And like the kind of response that I've seen and I've been hearing about with their loved one with the addiction, all the families I'm working with, they're all getting better, and their person with addiction is getting better as well. And I've been working in this field a long time. I've never seen anything like this in terms of how effective it is and how it turns people's lives around.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And I had one mom say, which I thought was good. She said, we're really doing well. She wrote a little comment, you know, and this has really been helpful. And my son's on a much better course. And if he does ever relapse or have a slip or anything in the future, I have these tools. So I know how to just get right back into it and work with him. So, I mean, she felt, you know, kind of equipped. But your podcast is great. And I know you're doing individual coaching too. Your podcast is wonderful. So I want everyone to listen to that. It's like I said, that one with your son was so good. You're such an amazing dad. And the thing I loved about it too is the relationship. I you know, obviously I don't know your relationship with him, but on that podcast, you could just tell that you guys are really close and you communicate well. And what a great example for families to see. You know, you don't have to be mad at your kids. You don't have to be angry. You can work with them and talk to them and communicate. So.
Yeah, and just love them. You know, and Cathy sent me a message and said, "Oh, I just listened to your episode with your son. That's really cool." And coming from Cathy, I thought, "Wow, that's really high praise. I did good. I did good."
I don't know about that.
And another person who I don't know well at all. She and I talked on the phone for a consultation. She said, "Oh, I love that episode, and I keep listening to it over and over." I said, "Wow, do you learn something new each time?" And she goes, "Yeah, to some degree, but also because my son is in that same kind of position, still struggling, and it helps me feel closer to my son when I listen to that episode." And it was just like so touching.
That's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we rarely hear that kind of impact on people. So it was great for her to share that, and it's good to know that we're putting stuff out that people are finding so helpful.
Absolutely. No, you're a gift to people, Patrick. And I also have that interview with you too. So if anyone wants to check that out, because Patrick changed.
Right.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. You'll find it on there. But yeah, where you share, or it's on my blog too. But yeah, no, that was wonderful to find out really what you're doing and you're very gifted with your knowledge. So that's good.
Well, Cathy, that was fun. And that was one of my first interviews on video. I think it might have been my first interview on video. And so thanks for giving me my start. And look where we are like a year and a half later. We're both on video, and you've been doing video forever. But what do you think of Facebook Live now that you're here?
I like it. I've tried it a couple times, not very much. I mean, I've had people say, you should be doing this all the time. And I know people do it a lot, and it's probably helpful, but it is good. I think it's great. It's a nice way to connect with people. And somebody asked me if it's recorded. So it'll be on your website or on your page, correct? Yeah. Yes. So that's what I told her. I said, I think it's going to just be on the page and you can go and find it. So I think, Absolutely. It seems like there are a lot of families on Facebook that it is a place. There's a lot of groups as well. So it is a place where I think parents are finding connections and stuff. So
yeah, well, that's wonderful. And with different types of media out there and social media as well, it's just offering so many options. I mean, think like 20, 30 years ago, and you're an educator from, professionally, you're a professional educator. I mean, what we had back then was books, and you had to go to a library and you had to, borrow them or stay them and copy things down. So, I mean, one good development is that with the World Wide Web, we've got so much information and support and recovery and treatment that's available that that wouldn't have been available to as many people as it was 20, 30 years ago.
Right. No, absolutely. And I know in just the time I've been doing this, I mean, there's so many more groups now, and people, when I first started out, there weren't that many, and there are a lot of, and even parents have just come up or become coaches and trying to create programs for parents or loved ones or whatever. And I think it's all helpful. I think the more people can find support, the better. So
yeah, and not just one or the other, but taking trying out different approaches,
right.
a peer coach, mutual peer support groups, professionals, different groups versus and reading and meditation, and there's so many options now that we recommend that people try them all and see what works for you. And sometimes it might be 5, 6, 7 different approaches.
Mm-hmm. No,
Cathy,
absolutely. I agree. And pulling what they like. Yeah. So I think
yeah,
it's good. It's all
yeah.
good.
People learn in different ways, and learning is a process. And Cathy, it's been so great to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. I always enjoy
Absolutely.
connecting with you, and I want to do it more often. So thanks. And once again, it's cathytaughinbaugh.com, and my website is familyaddictioncoach.com. And we both have podcasts, blogs, different types of media, a lot of information, and reach out for support. You don't have to go through this alone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate being on, talking
Oh,
with you.
absolutely. My pleasure. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.